going back to the Nazis in Norway, they really feared the radios and the people's ability to gather and synchronize against them. They were everywhere in Norway, and they went to the houses regularly to ransack the complete house, private homes, to look for radios. And if you had a radio, that would be a nerve-wracking experience. I know that the Nazis were everywhere because I'm living out in Norway, and I have family that have been living here, and they had the Nazis come visit them. And somebody had been telling the Nazis that this family had a radio. Because they were traitors, you know, if you did give useful information to the Nazis, you would get benefits, or perhaps they would save your ass in a different situation. So that happened, but most of the time the Norwegians had integrity and stuck together. Anyway, people in my family were living on a farm in this area, and they had a radio. And the Nazis came because somebody has tipped them off that there was a radio here. And because it was a farm, it was a big area to search, but they went everywhere. They ransacked the complete house, everything. I suppose it must have been a big, big mess. And I suppose that the owners must have been quite scared because they did have a radio. However, they never found it because in this farm they had a big wild horse, and it was really the kind of horse that nobody dared going close to because it was not a good horse. It was only the owner that could handle it, and so even though they searched the barn, they didn't find the radio because it was underneath the hay behind this big horse. So you literally had to be friends with this horse in order to get to the radio. The Germans, they were so upset because they couldn't find the radio. They knew that it was there somewhere. And so they ended up shooting the guy in his leg, just as a warning, because they knew he had a radio. They were so convinced, but they couldn't find it. So even just on the suspicion of having a radio, you could get shot. But it was a time where everyone suddenly was important. Like today, nobody matters. You exist and nobody needs you. We have this kind of Western society where people have everything and you're not important. However, when the war started, everyone was important. Everyone had a task. They knew what they could do to make a difference, and it was needed. And it is the same today. If you realize the war that we are in, suddenly you matter. Suddenly you have a task and a mission. And suddenly things depend on you. The Norwegians, they stood up. A lot of the people stood up and took the calling. They took the task. They knew that the people and the nation depended on them. Naturally, a resistance movement was formed. And it wasn't led by this big general saying, oh yes, you can come and you can be a part of this and you can get this task. No, it was self-structured because everything had gone down. We were in a war and the normal structures had fallen. And so people had to organize themselves. Somebody had to start doing something and then coordinating it with others. And so it would build. It was based on dynamic growth. This was we against a common enemy. So the resistance movement that rose up ended up being called the guys in the woods. In Norwegian, we say gutta på skauen, but translated, it is the guys in the woods. And the reason for that name, which is kind of like a strange name, is that the Germans were everywhere, but we had an advantage, and that was our big country with so much nature. They didn't know our landscape. They didn't know our nature the way that we did. And so most people would hide their radios out in the woods. And a lot of their missions would involve getting out in the woods, out in the open landscape where there were no Germans. These people would go out in the woods and hide to listen to the radio. My grandfather, he was also out in the woods or even high up in the mountains because there was another way of communicating, and that was by physical letters. They couldn't send it by the mail because that was controlled, of course, and very dangerous. However, being a transporter, like a messenger, was an option. And so my grandfather, he was a really, really good skier. He would go high up in the mountains, in the snowy areas where no Germans would be. And they didn't know how to move about in that area and what to do there, was empty. And he would be walking, I suppose, for 2 days to go from one city to another. And somewhere on his body, he would be storing and hiding a letter. As he came to the new city, he would deliver the letter and stay there for a little while, and then he would get a new letter. He would go all the way back and give it back to the people that originally sent him. And so this was the way that the troops or the resistance movement would organize themselves in detail. Because the radio would only give general information, general news and motivational speeches. The structuring, the detailed plans, the local initiatives, and all of these kind of sensitive intel would be delivered with physical letters, being transported by brave individuals going high up in the mountains in the snowy and cold and uncomfortable areas, often in dangerous places, just to deliver it without being caught by the Germans. And in this way, the resistance movement could form themselves and structure and organize and plan real attacks. And one of these attacks was to blow up a factory. It was a Norwegian factory. It's strange. Why would they blow up their own infrastructure or values? Well, because it was the place where the Germans got the resources they needed to maintain their weapons and keep up the big war machine, not only in Norway, but in all of Europe. And by intel, by well-structured communication, they managed to succeed in this operation. The gutta på skauen, the guys in the woods, they went out on this very dangerous operation and they succeeded. And that is the importance of radio and structured communication and teamwork. My grandfather was never caught transporting letters. Incredibly enough, that was not the reason why he ended up in a concentration camp. The reason was simply that he was a fireman and he was listed in some kind of group. They didn't have internet with all the lists that we have today, but they had physical lists, and he was mentioned on one list that the Germans found very suspicious. And for that reason, they didn't know that he was transporting letters and doing great damage to their cause. They had no idea. But they did arrest him based on being on a list. And he ended up in a prison in Norway, first a camp for prisoners. And then they took them to Germany. He was in a group that they made travel from one concentration camp to another. He survived, but he went through a lot and, he never wanted to talk about it. The guys in the woods, the resistance movement, they listened to the radio. They went out in their hidden places and listened in secrecy. And so you may wonder, what did they listen to? Surely some of them did listen to foreign stations, but not that many Norwegians knew English or foreign languages back then. And so an important thing happened, because the leader of the national radio station, the state radio and TV station, not the leader of the whole thing, but the leader of the news section, he had fled to Sweden. And now he continued on to London, England. And there he set up with BBC and created a Norwegian radio channel, like he was broadcasting from their office. He cooperated with the Norwegian government, parts of that was also in exile. And he gave news and information and updates to the Norwegians in their own language. He also gave inspirational speeches every Sunday that meant a lot for the resistance movement. It gave them hope, it kept them together. And the man that was behind these radio broadcasts, the leader of the news section, he ended up being called the Voice from London. Naturally, because he was broadcasting from London and everybody listened to him. Out in the woods, out in the barns, wherever they were hiding their radios, he would be the one to listen to. And even today, any child going to school will learn about the Voice from London, because he played an important role in the war. And so you may wonder, why didn't they just say his name? Well, it could have been because it was a fairly difficult name, hard to pronounce, because his real name is Toralf Øksnevad. But I doubt that was the reason. Surely it was for security reasons, or just for simplicity. Either way, he ended up being called the Voice from London, and it had this good sound to it for all Norwegians. It was a channel of unity and strength. I've told earlier that I would share a story about guns and radios and elements of my past. And so this story is it. This is an element that is related to all Norwegians' past, and it's in our consciousness so strongly. I haven't lived through these things, but everyone that are grown up in this nation today, they have relatives with fresh memories of what it means to fight for what you love and to fight for your nation, and to suffer under an enemy. And perhaps that is why we have this unique celebration of our Constitution Day. We really have been through stuff, so we celebrate it. And unlike other countries, we invite all children from everywhere. All of our Norwegian children, they are supposed to be marching with flags and the national costume and eat lots of ice creams and hot dogs and play games and stuff. That's what our Constitution Day is about. And all people, the grown-ups, the old, everyone, they're out marching. And they have bands playing and lots of drums. It's not military, but at the same time it has kind of like that feel where the troops are marching around. But it's not the government and it's not the military, it is the troops of the people. And the people that is gathered, and the children that is put forth, because it is our future. And so they are waving the flag and there's smiles on their faces and there is oneness. And every single time, for no reason seemingly, I just start crying. I cannot watch or listen to the bands, the drums, and see the people gathered like that without being soaked in tears. It hits something in me. And I do believe that is the spirit of unity. the spirit of fighting for what we love, and genetic memory of the battle that we have been through. How can I say that? Well, my mom, she has the exact same thing. And I didn't know. And she's even a person that never cries. And so I do believe that this is anchored within our consciousness deeply. And that also means that when a new enemy comes, we still have the spine, we still have the guts, we still have that fighting spirit to stand up and say, uh-oh, this is our land, get off our property. And this is not something that is for Norwegians. This is something that is for the world. For we do have an enemy that is trying to take territory all over the place. And we that are awake and that love God, love life, love humanity, we have to stand up and say no. We have to put up a fight. We have to make the difference. And in order to be strong, we need to connect. And we need to be wise and learn from the real news so that we can be effective in how to pinpoint the enemy's weak spots, because the enemy always has weaknesses. And so the matter is not how many we are, or how strong we are, or how much equipment we have. But the important is who is with us and how are we able to be smart, to walk in the presence of God and put down the spear exactly where it needs to be. As I learned about the voice from London, I could so relate, because I always felt the urge to reach out, to wake up people. I knew there was a hidden war even before I didn't know God. I didn't know any of these things consciously, but I knew that something was so wrong and people were sleeping. I was shy, so it wasn't my nature to shout from the rooftops, but the urge was on the inside, and I really had to find a way to reach out. And then as I grew up, there was a statue in my grandmother's house, and I came visit regularly, and since I was interested in arts, I paid attention to the statue because I loved good works and the traditional ways. And I soon learned that that was a statue, or like a bust, from the head and down to the shoulders. And I learned that that was indeed a statue of the voice from London. And the reason that that statue was in my grandmother's house was simply because he was my grandmother's uncle. And so this is not just a legacy and a heritage of the nation, but it's actually in my family. And throughout the years, I have prayed a few times to get a portion of that legacy, to get a piece of that mantle. And it's not for fame. I'm not at all interested in that. If so, I would have to look good every day and stress with all kinds of stuff. No, thank you. I'd rather stay in my cave. But I am burdened and I cannot relax because I feel the urgency of the hour. I sense the souls that are sleeping, that should have been woken up. And I see that there are not enough people out there making a difference. And so until that is done, I do not have rest. This is not about me being so great or so important. Not at all. I am flawed and hopeless. But still, I act. I do something with what I have because I cannot do anything else. I have to. And that is my urge, to see thousands and thousands of soldiers, fellow brothers and sisters that rise up and just can't stand pretending that everything is okay, but have to do something to make a difference. Who cares about drama series on the TV and action movies? Who has the time for that when reality is far more exciting? That's how I feel, and I'm not doing this because I like to be in charge. I'm not a natural leader. I don't want to be that. I basically just want to belong somewhere and follow somebody else. That is so much more comfortable. But that has not been an option. If the place that you're in makes you feel that you want to scream because it's something that is so wrong, then it's time to step up and become a soldier. I felt the urge. I needed to reach out, and I prayed a simple prayer. And if that could work for me, think of all the things that you can do. You're connected to the same God. I prayed to God, but I never considered radio though. That's kind of like ironic, isn't it? I didn't think literally like that. I just wanted to be able to make a difference. I thought of every other opportunity, kind of like books and teachings and lectures and workshops and video, but I never ever thought of radio. I soon realized that it was almost a perfect tool for me though, because it doesn't require leaving the house. It doesn't require looking good in front of a camera. I can be sick, I can have a fever, I can be tucked up in a duvet in my pajamas with my hair standing right up, and you will not notice. It doesn't require typing, it doesn't require reading. It doesn't even require a lot of editing. It's basically just you talk and you're on. It was the perfect solution for me, as if somebody knew that that would be the only thing that could really work. So here I am, with a radio station and a name calling on the resistance movement of our time to rise up and make a difference. And I'm in no way implying that I am to be compared to the voice from London. He was a national hero. He was a great man with a great mission. I'm nothing compared to him. But what I'm saying is that God seems to be using these kind of elements to tell a story and to inspire, to encourage, and to help me get into the position where He wanted me. I did not choose this name for a radio. I didn't even think of making a radio in the first place. So it is beautiful to see how He is painting with elements and coincidences just to confirm His will. So I pray that He will help me, that He will be the one walking, and I get the chance to just follow. The goal of the radio station is indeed to gather, connect, inspire, and empower. Because we are in a war. We're in a war. And it's the same principles, even if times are different. It is the same principles at hand. Connection, communication, cooperation against the common enemy. And if we can work together in synergy as God leads us, then we can make a big difference. We are soldiers, all of us. We are potential soldiers. And so the question is not, how talented am I, or who has ordained me in the worldly realm? That is not of the essence. The essence is, are you willing to stand? Do you love God, and will you not back down even if you face opposition? Will you be a part of this war? Will you be a part of making a difference? Will you stand together in the resistance movement as God leads you? I was in a position where I didn't have any of the things that we started out with. I didn't know if my partners would be a part of it, And I didn't have any website. I didn't have access to the radio studio. And so all of these things are replaceable. But what was worse was that I was weak and uncertain. I was in confusion. I was simply uncomfortable with starting radio where it was kind of like me going out saying, "Hey world, here I am and I want your attention." That is not my nature, and I don't want attention to me. And so I gave it up to God, and I said, if this is really your will, then you have to restore something here. You have to build it up again. You have to give me a new confirmation and certainty. And so he answered. During a boat trip, because boat trips are very common on the west coast in Norway, you basically have to go by a boat if you want to go anywhere. And so during a boat trip that took several hours, I had an experience that made all the bits inside of me that was uncertain and weak, suddenly they were strong and ready to throw mountains out of the way to get the job done. And so what happened was basically I was shown his schedule, his topics, and what he wanted to do with this channel. I didn't see all the details, but I got some of them, and I got some of the topics, and it was spinning in my head, and I basically just had to bite my tongue not to shout. It was like dynamite. It was not the fluffy kind of thing. And it was this mixed feeling of love and strict urgency. It was as if he showed me that this is what you long for, this is what you love, and this is what I want you to do. And at the same time, he made me understand that this was no game. If I didn't do it, if I went willingly against this, I would be in trouble. And if I didn't do it his way, then I would be in big trouble too. And so luckily, I actually liked most of his, I liked all of his ideas better than mine. And so we came in agreement, and so I'll stick with that plan. So not only did this give me the strength and the persuasion that I needed to continue on the project, but it also made it clear that yes, God allowed it all to fall apart so that he could be the one to restore it the way that he wanted it. It was as if he put his foot down with great strength and said, "You're not starting a radio station. I am." And I love that. I simply love that. May it indeed be so. Let's give glory to him, that he may be our strength, that he may be our hope, our leader and commander-in-chief through this battle. For we will need his love, his guidance and protection all the way. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, let it be so. And may you bless all of those who have listened now. May you stir up the soldier within them. May you be with them and be close to them and talk to them and let them know what you have for them. Let them taste your wisdom, your love, and your power, your strength and courage. And show them, Lord, show them where you want them to be in this army. Show them exactly what they need and the steps they need to take as they need to take them. Bit by bit, you reveal it as we take steps in faith. Your will be done, God. I love you. And by that, this show is over. And I just want to give glory to the heroes that has been defending our nations and stood up for the freedom that we have today. And I want to give glory to God for bringing this patriotism back again as a fresh fluid running through our veins. He has all in his hand, and all we need to do is step out and be a part of it. Be willing to take a chance. And if I can do this radio stuff, then you can do whatever you have been called to. And because of the setbacks, we don't have the webpage at the moment, so I cannot say that if you like this and you want to be a part of this and you want to connect more, then send us an email and tell us how you feel about these things. But we do have our Facebook page, Free Legions on Facebook, and the webpage will return. We also have shows coming up, and if you have preferences of what you would like to see first, we would like to hear from you, because we will have shows about prayer where we pray for people. We will also have a show for dream interpretation where we interpret dreams from the listeners, and interesting dreams that speaks to all of us. And there will also be a show about a prayer walk, about a courageous woman that is walking or will be walking all around Norway. It's not coming right this moment, but I'm just telling you that it's on its way. And hopefully you will find this interesting enough to tune in next Saturday, as I will talk about salvation. It's not going to be the traditional thing you hear in the ordinary church. I never fitted into any church. But here I have my own platform where I can say whatever I want. And it will probably provoke some of you, and for others it will set them free. And that is the point, because those who don't fit into the church, they need to have a place as well. So I hope to see you then, or hear from you. Be blessed. Take care.